Good.
Okay, so.
Let's tell a story about how we met.
Oh, why don't you start that off?
Well,
You start, honey, how we met.
Okay, most of you know me, some of you don't, but Laurie and I have been together 25 years. Never had a problem the whole time, pretty amazing.
No, never did, ever, never.
So it sounds perfect.
Yeah, perfect, and I went to graduate school for psychology, and so did you, to try to figure it out.
Yeah, so I met her at a restaurant bar in Folsom called the Hacienda. And those of you who live there might know the Hacienda. It's a Mexican food place right in the old part of town. Should I actually say what I said?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so this will be brief. It's kind of off the topic of the book, but I was going through separated, I guess? Separation, divorce.
I'm not sure about both of us, but it's okay.
So,
keep going, honey.
And I really liked to drink a lot at that time. I was a stockbroker, and that's basically what we did a lot. Then one day I was home depressed, and a friend of mine lived up in El Dorado Hills, Bob Swenson, called me. I said, "Mark, come on out. There's some people I want you to meet." And I'm going, "Nah, I was hungover." I said, "I don't want to do that." So we talked me into it. I went up to the Hacienda, and it was karaoke night. And Laurie was there. I didn't know her or her friends. She was there with 3 friends.
Yeah, we had matching full leather outfits.
They had like leather Supremes, like leather miniskirt things on. My friends, this is, I don't know what the other ones were. Anyway, so and so, this is so. I said, hi, this is Laurie. Wow. And the first thing I said to her was, it's kind of embarrassing.
No, it's okay. It's Hacienda.
So I said, nice cleavage. So would you,
that was the 90s.
So I said, nice cleavage. Would you marry me? So we've been engaged since then.
Yeah, 25 years. Yeah.
Perfect one.
And meeting at the Hacienda bar is funny how life goes full circle and how we ended. And what was the poem you said to me? Do you remember the first night? I said, "Oh, Google, yeah, he sang a poem."
Yeah, so people sometimes ask me, why did you like poetry? It's like sometimes they ask people, why did you become a musician or an actor? And a lot, if they're honest, it's well, to meet girls. So I don't recall doing it, but she says I did, so I'm sure I did. I recited "Gather You Rosebuds" by Robert Herrick. It's "Gather you rosebuds while you may, oh time is still a-flying. For the same old flower that smiles today, tomorrow will be dying." So the carpe diem, like, get busy.
Yeah, and that was 25 years ago, so I feel like we were just kids, And I thought, oh no, don't do the poetry thing, It's like, oh no, because, women love that, and I always did too, growing up with it and everything, and so I was smitten. Thought it was pretty cute. So I guess we'll get to our interview. So I'm pretending to be, I could be Diane Sawyer, I could be Megyn Kelly, I could be whatever, or if anybody's watching that.
We're watching the morning show. So
watching the morning show.
Have you seen it, Rob?
It's the morning show right now with Reese Witherspoon and Jennifer Aniston, which reminds me of my actress friend in the back row there. I know I'm embarrassed that always stole my parts, but in high school. But anyway, Jennifer Aniston, I said, I could be tough like her. Well, not really, but it's okay. Okay, so we'll get started because I don't want to keep you guys too long. It's going to be short and sweet. I don't like that draggy out thing, and I like to keep our sense of humor. So anyway, Mark, so thank you all for coming here today. I am so happy because I said, if no one showed up, honey, we'll film it with Arno and just send it for our kids, and then we'll put in football, like clapping.
You put cardboard people.
Cardboard people, my art class can make cardboard people. Okay, so anyway, thank you, guys. So welcome to Hacienda 15 Minutes, I call it. Today, we're going to talk about a book published by our resident, Mark McKinnon. Okay. So please feel free to enjoy some refreshments during. We're fine if you get up out there. And write your unit number or your name on our little cards that we're doing a book for free drawing. And you can take home a free bookmark. Because it's a bookmark for bookmarks. Okay, so anyway, Mark, when did you first get interested in poetry?
Actually, I didn't know that question was coming.
I don't think
You know,
knows
I think like a lot of things, a teacher, well, I would preface it, my mom was an English teacher, so there was always books in the house. But I remember a teacher, in, I think it was 9th grade, Mr. Sinatra, and he had us read poems and then evaluate the poems, which I had really never done before. I mean, everybody, when they're growing up, they learn poems and remember poems, even maybe when they forget everything else. Nursery rhymes and things are gonna stick with you. But I remember he, and this isn't actually a poem, but he had us evaluate the song by the Beatles called Eleanor Rigby. Many of you.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot to it when you look at the line by line, like what he's really saying rather than just the tune. And then I remember another poem he had was Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost, which you know many of you also probably know. And I liked mysteries. I was reading Sherlock Holmes and things like that. I said, this is really cool. You can try to figure this out, you know, and form an opinion about it. So the poetry is different than prose where you know, you can just read it. You have to read it 2 or 3 times and take your time and look at it. And I remember one of the poems that he had was a Robert Frost poem called Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. Many of you know that poem probably. You know that one?
Do you want to say it? Would you like to say it?
I can say
Okay,
it.
so why don't you say it right now, because it's perfect for the holiday season.
Yeah, so, and this kind of sparked my interest in it. Like, this is really very cool that you can like form an opinion about it, maybe right, maybe wrong, but it's your thoughts about what the author's trying
How
to say.
old were you when?
That would have been 9th or 10th grade, so how old is that?
17?
If that, younger, I think.
15?
Yeah.
14, 15, I think, yeah. So, the Frost poem goes like this. Whose woods are these, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there's been some mistake. The only other sound's the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I've got promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So,
Well done.
so the
I remember the ending.
yeah, and so the meaning, so I remember, and see, this was meaningful. I think I forgot everything else about high school other than playing sports. But I remember looking at it, and we went through it line by line. So, this is my opinion, might be different than others, but the first line is, whose woods are these? I think I know. His house is in the village, though. So, nobody owns the woods, but this is God's woods. And his house would be the church, which is in the town. You will not see me stopping to watch his woods floats. My little horse will sing. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. So probably December 21st, winter equinox, the darkest evening of the year. So his carriage stops for Christmas, evaluating his life. And it says, the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I've got promises to keep. So the way I thought about that was, you know, maybe he's thinking about ending his life, or at least reevaluating his life. You know, this is kind of peaceful here, with nobody around. And he says, but I've got promises to keep. So he's got things to do, and he's got miles to go before he sleeps. So he's got things to do that he needs to accomplish and take care of. You know, so I'm thinking that he ventures on. So that's kind of a line by line. And a lot of the poems you can do that. If you look at each line, there's more meaning to it than just the words themselves. So there's an interesting anecdote about that poem when I was kind of researching for the book. The line, the woods are lovely, dark and deep. Frost has a comma after lovely, but not after dark. So he wrote the poem, the woods are lovely, dark and deep. So when he sent it to the publisher, an editor looked at it and said, no, he added a comma after dark. So it's a list. The woods are lovely, dark, deep. And Frost wanted to say they're lovely, you know, because they're dark and deep. So he got very upset and If you have a copy of the book with the comment, it's very valuable because they quit the printing. So in poetry, a comma, a word, not just the rhyme scheme, but the way the syllables fit together, and the punctuation even, all means something, like every space. It wouldn't seem that much. There's an anecdote about Oscar Wilde. They couldn't find him. For instance, what have you been doing all day? He said, I spent all morning putting a comma in, and I spent the afternoon taking it out.
That sounds pretty typical. Yeah, I'm learning things I never knew. To tell you the truth, hi Robin, I never knew these things, so I knew that I wanted this to be off the cuff, and thank you for that.
Yeah, so that's an example, and see, the fact that I would remember it from a class, and I've looked back on the poem, it's in the book too, but those things stuck with me more than algebra.
Okay, so what was the first poem you ever memorized, and how old were you?
It was probably a nursery rhyme at that kind. I mean, we all learn those when we're very little, and we don't forget them, right? We may forget almost everything else, but we're going to always remember Jack and Jill. I mean, so I think I was probably like most children. I liked them. I think our minds like rhythm, music, and voice, acting, and words that sound good together. We remember, advertising is all, jingles and memorable things that just are easy.
So what about, was it middle school or high school? Can you remember one that you really liked in middle school or high school? Or is it more Robert Frost or?
Yeah, probably college. I started reading a little bit more poetry, like Emily Dickinson, Yeats, Auden, Frost, Longfellow. Do any of you have a favorite poet or poem?
Anybody have a favorite poet in here? That they like?
Susie?
Really?
Yeah, do you know him? No pressure.
Guest House?
Guest House. Is that Frost?
Rumi.
Oh,
Rumi is awesome.
Yeah, see, Rumi's poems are great. They don't rhyme, but there's a lot of Rumi in the book.
Yeah,
okay, Rumi. So I love Rumi. There's a, I don't know, off topic again, but anyway, there's a. Rumi was sitting alongside a creek or a river, maybe it was a lake, a stack of books, and he was reading all the books. And his friend Shams Tabrizi rides up. He says, what are you doing with all these books? He said, well, it's something that the unlearned cannot understand. And the guy threw the book in the water. And then Rumi went and got the book and it wasn't wet anymore. He said, there's a lot of, and Rumi said, there's a lot that you don't understand.
That's lovely. Thank you. No, that's really good. And what did you find interesting about poetry? What was the most interesting thing about it?
Well, I kind of explained before, it's just, to me it was like a puzzle too. Not only did it sound good and look good, it was something that you could try to figure out, on your own. It was just kind of, reading poetry is generally a solitary endeavor. You kind of read it. I would read a poem several times, or the same thing with something out of a book. So the premise of the book was, as I was reading these things, and it's probably true of a lot of people, I would see something, might just be a line or a paragraph or a short poem, and I'd think, I really want to remember that. It's either clever or funny, or it has a life lesson or something that I want to remember, that I can incorporate into who I am. So that's when I started. That's probably a future question. That's when I started writing it down, because I knew I would forget it. So I don't think I did it until college, but I started, when I saw something that I liked, I would stop, write it down on a notepad or a napkin, whatever's handy, and put it in a box. I didn't have a formal idea of what I was going to do with it. Later I thought I would put it all together and maybe give it to my children, family, friends. Just, these are things that I like.
Would you date it?
Pardon me?
Would you date it so you knew what it was that it struck you?
A lot of them I can. A lot of them I remember. So, yes, and it's remarkable that way. I remember reading The Great Gatsby. I was a senior in high school, and the teacher let us read Great Gatsby, which I liked. But I remember reading the first paragraph and saying, you know what, that's really good. I want to remember that. So I read it 5 times, probably 10 times, and then copied it down, put it away. And it's still, it's like something that I use, if not every day. I try to think about it.
I think you remind me, because we've been together 25 years, the premise was not everybody is born with the same advantages you have, and I think that's what I got from it. Because I don't know the quote, because I can never remember them like he does. But it's like not everybody, has, look at the advantages I know, and we live here and everything, and not everybody is born with that.
Yeah, so
Right.
the quotation is, that's the first paragraph of Gatsby. It's, in my younger, more vulnerable years, my father once told me something I've been turning over in my mind ever since. He says, before you criticize anyone, first remember that not everyone has had the same advantages in life that you've had. And I said, you know what? I need to remember that.
Absolutely.
And now, it's helped me, I think. Working, with Susie at Beacon House, and I was working at Dorothy's Place in Salinas. And it's easy to look down on people. They don't dress the same. They don't have the same things. They're struggling. But they didn't have the same opportunity. They didn't have the same advantages. They didn't have the same chances. They had a lot more trauma. So that was an example of something where I said, that's something I want to incorporate into my life. And I kind of, when you grow up, you're in a small circle, probably 5 miles from your house. You know your family and maybe some relatives, and you go to school with the same people. But if you read a book, you can learn about Russia, what happens in Paris, Germany. If you read Charles Dickens or Dostoevsky or Hemingway, you can experience it, or you don't experience it, but you can gather experiences without having to live through them.
And didn't you grow up, you told me in Danville, that you could ride, was it Danville? You could ride your bike with his brother, and he would ride the bike to the library. In addition to practicing hoop, basketball, he rode his bike to the library. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
So in 4th grade, we moved from Southern California to Danville, and so in the middle of the school year, I didn't really have friends. Eventually I did, I think, but we lived right down the street. 5 houses down was a library, and across the street from that was a middle school with a basketball court. So I went down and read like as many books as I could in the library, and then I shot baskets. I did that.
That's a good life as a kid.
I probably had OCD and ADD. I didn't know it, but I just would do it. I mean, I could shoot baskets for 4 hours. I could read books for 6 hours.
But hence you became very literary, and you also became really good at basketball in high school.
Yeah. So that
So that did the trick.
That helped me make friends. That helped me make friends.
No, it's really good.
Something I thought just came to me because I think you mentioned that. Do you remember where you were or what happened when you read something? And I hadn't thought about this for many, many years, but my mother grew up in a family with 10 kids. They were 100% Icelandic, and the Icelandic culture is really literate. They have books, and that's one thing that they're known for. And they had a guy who came over who was living in the basement. His name was Peter Baltuson, but I just called him Peter in the basement. He lived in the basement. And they just took him in. He didn't have a job, but you'd go down there, and he used to smoke a pipe, and I could smell that pipe smell, and he just had books everywhere. It was so fun to go down there and talk to him. And I remember reading, this is the first time I read Mark Twain. I just thought of this, but it's like, and I remember reading Mark Twain, and there's a scene where Huckleberry is going down the Mississippi River in a raft. And he looks up, and it's about 2 or 3 in the morning, and he looks up, and there's a light on in a house. Huckleberry says, somebody must be sick up there, somebody's taking care of them. I think that gave Huckleberry Finn kind of empathy to me.
Well, what about the monkey?
No, we don't. Well, anyway, he was eccentric. This is off topic, but
I was.
the
monkey.
Me and one other, there's
Peter
cousins
Mason.
everywhere with 10 kids, and they all had 5 or 6 kids
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
We had 4. But I think I was one of his favorites.
Yeah.
Probably because I went down and
Yeah,
talked to him.
but there was the monkey.
Yeah, later on he sent us a monkey, a live monkey.
A real monkey.
In the mail.
Like a pet.
Yeah, and it came in a
monkey.
cage.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not part of the book, but I remember coming home one day, I asked my mom, what happened to the monkey? She said
The monkey.
she told me she donated it to the school. I wasn't buying it. I don't think she killed the monkey.
No,
The monkey-
no, your mom would have done that.
The monkey was gone. I remember he would swing from the chandeliers.
It was a baby in their house and a monkey, and I said, who has a monkey? Sorry, honey, I had to segue over to that one. Okay, so who is your favorite male poet and a poem, if you can tell us? Your favorite
I don't
male
know
poet?
if the favorite. I mean, Susie reminded me of Rumi, and I really don't have any Rumi saved to memory. Male. I mean, Emily Dickinson might be number 1. Robert Frost. I like Longfellow.
Mhm.
W.H. Auden. There's a good poem by Longfellow that I like called The Psalm of Life. Want me to do it?
Oh, do you want to do it? Go ahead and do it. You guys good? This was supposed to be 10, 15 minutes,
No,
but we're good.
we'll stop
Okay,
when they
yeah.
start to fall
Yeah,
asleep.
we're good. Okay.
So, tell us not in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream. For the soul is dead that slumbers, and things are not what they seem. Life is real, life is earnest, and the grave is not its goal. Dust thou out to dust returnest was not spoken of the soul. In the world's wide field of battle, in the bivouac of life, be not like dumb-driven cattle, be a hero in the strife. Lives of great men still remind us that our lives can be sublime, and departing leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. Let us then be up and doing with a heart for any fate, still achieving, still pursuing, learn to labor and to wait. So I like that poem.
That's beautiful, honey. That's beautiful. Thank you. Okay, who is your, I still don't know how he memorized the list. I can't even remember my shopping list. But anyway, who is your favorite female poet and why?
Emily Dickinson.
And
Yeah.
can you name a poem or?
I mean, just anything by her. She wrote so
Yeah.
many of them, and her story is pretty amazing. The people that know about her.
Mhm.
I think there's a couple things on different channels now about her life, but it's very interesting. I mean, I haven't thought about it ahead of time. So the long poems I once knew, but I probably couldn't do right now. There's a short one, which I think is nice. And it's called "Hope is a Thing with Feathers."
Can you do it?
Let me think of it for a second.
Okay.
I didn't practice. Hope is a thing with feathers that perches on the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all.
That's beautiful. Thank you, honey. And I love that you celebrate the female poets and authors too, because that's a big deal to me. Okay, why and when did you, glasses, start memorizing poems? Why and when did you start memorizing? I mean, not many people memorize a lot of poems.
Probably going back to the high school class. Sung by Woods was one that I don't know if I memorized it back then, but I read it so many times I just remembered it. And then
Yeah.
the other one, Two Roads Diverge to Yellowwood, which many of you would probably know. That one is also one that's good to remember.
Okay, so philosophy. So we're going to go about 10 more minutes or 5 more minutes. Okay, what sparked your interest in philosophy? Because that's part of your book. It's philosophy, psychology, poetry. So what sparked your interest in philosophy?
Again, I think it was the need to try to figure things out. Had a good philosophy teacher at Davis, and again, there was more to it than just the words. You really had to take your time and think about it, digest it. And your opinion or my opinion might be different than somebody else's, but it was just fascinating to try to, kind of look at it as a detective. One book series that really started me reading, which is I think they're still in print, but it's a great series to give to somebody maybe 8 to 10. You want to get them interested in reading. It's called Encyclopedia Brown. Does anybody know Encyclopedia Brown?
Anybody heard of it?
Yeah, my kids read it.
Do they?
My boys.
Yeah,
Okay, so
Nancy drew.
it's like a short mysteries. They're, maybe 3 pages, and then you read it, and there's little clues in there, and in the back they have the answer. And these aren't big crimes, someone took a bicycle, or what happened to the
Stole the bicycle.
lemonade.
Yeah.
In this little town, and this little boy detective, he would charge, 25 cents or something to figure out the crimes, like a mini Sherlock Holmes. It's so fascinating, and there's probably 25 books. They're all thin. Yeah, I just read them all, so this is like the greatest thing I've ever read. I don't know if I have a favorite philosopher. Maybe Nietzsche's the most fascinating.
Okay.
I like Schopenhauer, but Pascal's wager is a good way to think about things. If you know that.
You told me a lot about that. Okay, and what are a few of your favorite quotes from philosophy? Do you have anything you want to share that's a favorite quote from philosophy? About life in general?
I probably don't. You have to get the book though.
Okay.
There's
See, there you go.
there's a lot of those in there. A few of you I think have the book or have seen the book. Or you can ask me how I put the book together. Is that
Yes,
so
we're going right there. I'm just going really quick on the psychology. When did your interest in pursuing your education for psychology in your 50s? When did that happen?
Well, I attribute that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Just like everything else.
Thank you. And
So-
why did you attend school and go for psychology?
So,
Okay. Yeah.
I was, after school, graduate school, I went to work as a stockbroker in New York for Merrill Lynch. So I was there doing that. And then I came back to Sacramento as a broker, investment banker. I really loved the job for probably 8 or 10 years. Then I liked it okay because they were paying me to not do that much.
Yeah, I remember.
It allowed me to have long lunches and schmooze. But after a time, it's like this kind of maybe goes into the philosophy. It's like is this really meaningful? Is you're helping wealthy people get wealthier, and And Laurie moved out here to take care of her mother. She was born in Carmel, and her mother was here. And her mother's going to be 97 next month. And she was diagnosed with cancer, and it was presumably terminal. As it turned out, that's been 12 years, right? 15 years. She's still going strong, so that's encouraging. So Laurie moved down here, and I was up there, and I was kind of tiring of that business. So I quit that, came down here, and Laurie had been in or finishing up grad school.
Psychology.
And now she's a licensed therapist. So my thought was, maybe I could do that, try to help people. So I went to school to get a master's in psychology with the idea of being a therapist, which is not going to happen. But,
It's okay. You did all the classes.
so I finished the school part of it,
Yeah.
and then in the meantime, I
You got a job.
started out. I don't know if I volunteered at Sun Street in Salinas, and that was interesting. Did groups, and then they hired me at Dorothy's place in Salinas. Which I was like social worker, basically.
No, but director. Remember you said, I don't want to be president.
Well,
like
then
in that Steinbeck movie. I don't want to be president. He was a janitor, and you said, I don't want to be president. And they said they promoted you.
Yeah, so
Sorry.
I was doing that,
Yeah.
and the director quit Dorothy's place, House of Peace. And they said, Mark, we'd like you to be the director. And I'm thinking, well, first of all, you have to fundraise, you have to do the budget, which I didn't want to do. You had to run this program where you would take people from the streets who were homeless. They had about 22 rooms, or 22 beds, or about 16 rooms. Taking people from homeless, try to get them, everything, healthcare, mental health. They didn't have like ID or phones, so they had a myriad of problems. And I wanted to work with people. I didn't want to be in administration, so I told them I'll do this temporarily, like 2 months. You can find somebody else. Well, they didn't. She didn't even look. So I had that job for
Yeah.
a couple of years, which I love that job. I still, I've taken a couple of people over there, picked up our run over. Love those people. And first thing I did, they'd only filled like 5 rooms out of 22 empty rooms. The previous director was very good and competent, but she only took people in like I was very convinced we're going to succeed. It's like, well, I'll just bring them all in. So if I maybe just harm reduction, if we can just improve things a little bit, that's good enough. Because they were coming in with active heroin addictions, alcoholic, serious mental health, not just mild depression, dissociative disorders, everything. And it did stabilize them. They were in, if everybody's been to Chinatown over in Salinas, right across the street from where John Steinbeck was born and grew up. And if you read the book East of Eden, this is where he kind of snuck over across the tracks. They had bars, and prostitution, opium dens. And it's basically still there, but now it's homeless. There's probably 150, 200 people living in tents and boxes and on the ground. But, it makes me cry thinking about it. There's, Janice, when she was 70, sleeping on the sidewalk, and there's like mice crawling on her.
And she used to have like a normal life. I remember Mark told me lived in Carmel Valley and raised kids, was married, and had a normal life. And I said, here, by the grace of God, go I. Any of us can be one step away from, a paycheck or homelessness or whatever, but we have social support. Go ahead.
I just want to add something here, talking about what he did about these people.
Thank you, Mark.
And he asked me to come with him to see a couple that he provided for. They were in their own home. The most humbling people I think I've ever met. And so, of course, he's telling them all about me and my career. It was like night and day there.
Yeah.
But and that I was a singer. And so I sang a song for them. And
What'd you sing?
yeah, I'm going to do it for you.
Oh.
If I can remember what the song that I did. But anyway, she gave me a hairbrush for the microphone. And I can't remember the song. I really can't remember. But what she said, of course she was just like, wow. And what she told me was, I used to use that song when I dressed up like Mama in Mama's Family. She was a stripper. And she would take off, I don't know if you ever saw that series, Mama's Family.
Oh,
Funny, it was a takeoff from Carol Burnett and then the girl that came with her. But she spun off to her own show. And I guest starred on that show one time. It was one of the funniest things, working with her with the big pads and the butt. Oh, it's hilarious. And we're doing Dirty Dancing. It's a hilarious episode if you ever see it. But she told me, she said, I used to use that costume when I stripped. I went, wow. I tried to picture that. And here she's like, how old were they now? 60s? 50s?
She looks a lot older, but she's probably mid-50s, late 50s.
Oh,
Yeah, Diana.
But I can just imagine it'd be a 19-year-old, But that's what this guy was doing back then.
Yeah, so, that's.
Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, when things settle down with COVID, we'll get back over there. There's some people I want to see. But yeah, that's Diane and Jimmy.
Yeah.
She looks a lot older, but she's probably, I don't know, 56, 57 now. Ran away at 13, and if you knew what happened to her, you would understand why anybody would run away, lived on the streets. good person with some minor arrests and prostitution. She was a stripper, and she also was a heroin addict for like 40 years.
A long time, yeah.
But she got off heroin. She was, when I met her, she was in a two-person tent with Jimmy, her boyfriend, and a giant pit bull. And, you know, anyway, we got her in and got her on methadone, and she still has health problems, and you know, I don't know what her life expectancy will be, but she was determined. She has such a blithe spirit, and she's so happy and grateful. So I tried to get her a place. I got her a Section 8 voucher. Started out, I need an ID, and then all kinds of things. But after like 2 years, got her a Section 8 voucher, and I was trying to get her a place to stay. And with a Section 8 voucher, you know, your rent is subsidized, partially subsidized, but still they have to choose to rent to you. So I was helping her fill out the application. Her English is not that good. And the application was just, you know, name, okay, that's good. Job history, well, no. Rental history, you know, tent. Legal issues, she had some minor things. You know, this is like an application that just gets thrown in the trash. But there was, I remember, and there's a realtor in Salinas, and I went and talked to her. I said, you know, should, you know, maybe give these two a chance. They're clean and sober now. They're good people, and you know, I know the application looks bad, but I can vouch for them, and we're gonna keep them on our caseload, and we're gonna check up on them a couple times a week. So thankful to her, she said, yeah, we'll rent to them. And I remember she came in and she was crying. She'd never filled out a rental agreement, didn't, you know, or any of that. And she filled it out, she got the key, and she went to the place, which is not great, but it's okay.
It was clean.
It's pretty clean, was then anyway, and she went and like, I took her pictures, opened the door, she has a big smile, and she went in, and she just stood up and like twirled her arms around. Wow. Like there's just so, and it was like an 8x8 room, probably, or 10. Like, there's so much room. Where she was, you know, where she was living, she couldn't even stand up.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're dear to me.
I know. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing, you guys, because we're just wrapping up, you guys. So, anyway, would you like to recite a poem for us?
Well, I did a couple.
One more before we go. And we're wrapping it up because I have a little announcement to make. Okay?
Let me think of one.
Wait, before I go, who's your favorite present day author or poet, female or male? Female and male. Who's your present? So just to inspire people that are around now. That is not ancient history.
Yeah, I don't,
Anne Lamont?
I don't, no, I mean, she's good, but, you know, I think I'm changing a little bit. I mean, I would have said 5 or 10 years ago, Hemingway. I just really liked Hemingway's short stories and his novels, and I collected them. The Hemingway first editions, I have them like in storage up in Sacramento.
Well, I'm talking about
switching
present. I'm talking about present people that are here now that are young and upcoming and everything. So a present female, male that's present right now. What do you have to think about it?
Would probably.
I know you like Anne Lamont.
Yeah, she's okay. Not a great writer. She's fun to read. I like Ian McEwan wrote Atonement. I think he's really good.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I need to get a little bit more diversified. My my niece Lacey, she went to Vanderbilt for get a PhD in English, and Courtney, Laurie's daughter, and I consider her my daughter too. We helped raise her since she was 6. Christopher, she's very literary. We try to take credit, but we probably don't deserve it. But anyway,
She's a professor at Cornell.
yeah. So she,
There you go.
yeah. So she's a writer. She's been published in several
That is right.
literary
You're bragging.
publications. Sarah's read a couple of them. In a minute, if you want to comment on it, but When they moved into my house, I think it was 3 bedrooms, and with boys shared room, and Courtney went into my library, which I just put there was books on every wall and desk.
It was like this.
Yeah, so, and that's where she stayed, so we're thinking that like osmosis came in. And but anyway, she is a writer, and she's working on a novel, and she's getting her master's at Cornell writing.
And she's also a professor.
Yeah, she's teaching it.
She's teaching.
Maybe a little brand.
And your son's an attorney, and the other one has 3 kids and working for a software company, so we're doing okay.
Yeah,
Because
so
our kids will see this, so there you go, kids.
So I mean, there's a lot of things I could do. All of them became readers and writers too. My son Christopher published in a couple law reviews. Courtney's short stories are just amazing. If anybody's interested, I'll give you a way to find them or lend you the publication. Sarah, you read a couple of them, didn't you? What did you think?
I thought she was remarkably creative, well-spoken, just gave a fascinating sci-fi kind of stories.
Yeah,
I
so-
was just really impressed with them.
Yeah, it's
Well, thank you.
pretty
That's really nice.
deep. Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes hard for Laurie to read. She goes,
I always
read
make
them
you
first.
read them first because I'm a little scared.
She's a little darker than Laurie. Laurie's
Yeah, I
she's
want to
pretty
chicken
happy.
soup for the soul. Let's write something really happy and get that published. And my daughter is deeper, and my son, he's just so busy with 3 kids, and he's done some writing too.
Yeah, it's really
Quite a bit of writing, so I'm proud of all.
So I think it's, reading books to me, and that's why, since we're wrapping up, I wanted to have something to give to the kids and family that might spur them on to read. And if you have somebody that, might be a child, grandchild, they might see something and say, that's pretty cool. I'd like to read more about it. I think sometimes just one little thing can kind of spur some interest into a whole new avenue that they maybe hadn't been exposed to.
I remember with Greg was stopping by the woods in 6th grade to practice at Christmas. He memorized it
Yeah.
because of you.
There you
I
go.
know you guys have a lot to learn about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, listening, I know what you've read and everything, and I understand. I don't know what the philosophy of religion philosophy had anything to do with your growth, and I think it probably did. But I don't know if you dabbled in any of
question.
that at all.
Good question.
Yeah, religion's a sensitive subject. I don't. There's some quotations from philosophers and other people that have to do with religion. My personal experience with religion is a little different. I was baptized Catholic, went to, didn't go to Catholic school, went to Sunday school and so on. And I don't want to offend anybody, but I don't know, sometime around maybe 10, 12 years old, I wasn't really buying some of the stories, because I had already read a lot of stories and I knew what fiction looked like. So, I stopped, but that's a work in progress.
It definitely is a work in progress.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions before we get on? Because I know you guys, thank you for giving your time today and everything. And we already explained how we met, so I think we're good.
How did you read them?
So, I'll make this short. So, I already said I would try to remember things and write them down back as far as I can remember. And I didn't really have a plan to make a book out of it. I knew I wanted to do something. And in the past, if you wanted to self-publish, you needed to basically pay for all the books, and then, which was expensive to, buy 100 books or whatever, and then sell them or give them away. But now, if anybody's interested, I could help you get started. Through Amazon, there's something called KDP Publishing. It's Kindle Direct Publishing. So what I did, after I was laid off from Beacon House, in the pandemic, this would be March, April of last year, I had all this, and Laurie, without Laurie's impetus, I'd be like 300 pounds and just like laying on the ground. But she said, you should do this. If not now, when? And so I gathered it together, and one thing I had been doing on Facebook, rather than arguing about politics, I would lighten things up and put a quotation or a short poem, inspirational quotation on Facebook, and then people liked it. I haven't haven't been doing it that much anymore, but people all over the world were, saying, I love this, I like this. So there's like 5,000 followers who are like reading this. I go, you know what, it's time to do this. So that helped because I could then go and just copy it off of my Facebook post, which I edited for grammar and spelling and attribution, and then take it and put it on a Word document, plus the things I'd handwritten. So I typed it out. I sat right here at Hacienda.
Yeah.
Out here.
I booted you out all the time, and people say, he's down there at Hacienda, just with a mask on, typing. Oh, he's working on a book. And so it was kind of good.
Yeah, so I put it all in a Word document, and there's duplications and errors and problems with it. But then I said I'll just print it all out and go through and edit it. And when I printed it all out at UPS, but 700 pages. It was like this. It was like this. It was like this thick. You could hardly lift it. So
I said, I don't know, honey, you gotta narrow it down.
yeah, so I went through, and there was, like I said, there was a lot of duplicates and things that maybe I didn't like as much anymore. So I eliminated a lot of those, condensed it down, tried to find the proper attribution, and then also there was things I'd written, which is probably 10% of the book or so,
Probably.
which is designated by
Yeah.
MM in the book. So things that I wrote are in there too. But so I did that. So I did all the editing and proofing. And then Laurie knew somebody from a place called Pixels in PG, who helped format the book or the kind of manuscript to book form. So it's not just as simple as like handing a Word document. This stuff I don't understand, but they allow you to put a cover photo, a back photo, who you dedicate the book to, and line spacing and things was an issue because there's 1,000 quotations in there. The book I think is close to 400 pages, and it's not a book that you can I encourage you to thumb through it. It's not a book that you read cover to cover. Really, it's just a good book, I think, to just open up, read a couple pages.
Yeah.
I still do it. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that. And there's everything from, Winnie the Pooh to Socrates. And so there's some things are serious, some are kind of fun. And the poems that are in there are pretty short, so they're digestible. And on some, not all, I put kind of an evaluation or an analysis of the poem.
Well, when I first met Mark 25 years ago, he had this drawer full of legal pads with all these scribbles. I could barely read it. What is this? And he says, well, I want to buy a book about poetry. And I said, oh,
Yeah,
that's kind of interesting.
who'll read that?
But I was like going, I could hardly read them, I said, and they were in that drawer for years and years and years, and it was when you switched over, so we have to give Facebook, it hasn't been, it's a double-edged sword for sure, but, because Mark was able to cut and paste from that, how it turned into fruition to the book, but I was just like, you have to do this, and I'd be hounding him, probably 25 years ago. You have to do this.
So I have to thank Laurie, not only for that, but this and everything, because she was like, you need to do this. Because I'm pretty basically lazy. And so without her, I wouldn't have done it or a lot of things.
Yeah, but you had to write the book. See, I'm the one doing all this together and everything, but you had to write the book.
Yeah.
So, and you did, and you put it together, and you were down here like a dog with a bone, day after day after day after day after day. But it's like, what else were we going to do? We were stuck. So he did turn it into something useful. So thank you, all of you, for letting me share. And you want to wrap it up with anything?
Yeah,
before we go
I'll do one more poem.
Okay.
Which is, I just thought of it as it's kind of a poem about poetry, which I think is good, by W.H. Auden. Now let me think for 1 second so I can remember it right. Okay. If I stumble, I apologize.
I have something else to say.
We sat together one summer's end, you and I and your beautiful mild friend, and talked of poetry. I said, a line may take us hours, maybe. However, if it should be more than a moment's thought, our stitching and unstitching would be for naught. For better to go down on your marrow bones, or scrub kitchen pavement, or break stones. For to articulate sweet sounds together is more difficult than all these, and still be thought an idler by the noisy set that teachers, clergy, and schoolmasters call the world.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for coming here. And also, can you thank Arno? And
Thank you, Arno.
Because Arno,
I finally saw you in person.
I know Arno, who during the pandemic, I'm going to do a little pitch for him here. He took all my old videos. There was a lot that I took the kids and everything because they do decay after a while and everything. And he turned them all into a thumb drive and a private YouTube channel. So any of those of you that have these videos, they do not last. They kind of crumble after a while. He digitized them and I sent it. My daughter wasn't too thrilled with her cheerleading ones, but my son loved them and shared it with his daughter and on the thumb drive. And he said, no, don't. I said, DVDs? Do we do it on DVDs? No, so he knows all the technology and we went back and forth and every week, I think every 2 weeks I gave you a set of 20. I found more cleaning my mom's house and my house and everything. So Arno has his cards out here and also his flyers up in our little tiny room over there by the restaurant for any of you that need to or know your friends because those videos don't last forever. And it's a legacy that you can leave to your children and grandchildren, as you know, and all that. So I wanted to do a little pitch for that. And that was one. And I think there was another one I was doing in Ron, our Emmy Award-winning actor who showed up here.
Yeah.
Yes.
But anyway, thanks for coming, everybody.
And Jackie.
I'm going to give away a free book. I don't know how
Yes.
to do it. Why don't we just give everybody,
Yeah.
I'll pick a number between 1 and...
Oh, okay. Do you want to do that? Because I was going to have them write down and put it in the hat with their unit
Okay.
or their, if they're not here. But also, Vicki Monero in the back here is also a published author. There's wrote an amazing book about helping teachers. And as a substitute teacher for 10 years, it helps substitutes too. And I want everyone to also be aware of that too. And all of you that work at Beacon House and all. I'm probably missing people like Academy Award winner. They like me. They really like me.
So and if anybody wants a book, I have a few, not that many. They're selling on Amazon. If you type in the title or my name, Mark McKinnon, it'll pop up. And it's also selling at River House Books at the Crossroads. And if I decide not to be lazy, I'll get it into Pilgrim's Way and the other one soon.
Yeah.
But if anybody wants one, I sell them for 20, but I'll give them for like
I want one.